right, welcome back to another episode of the Rink Masters podcast. This week we've got a good talking point set up today. We've got really awesome interview with assistant coach of the Prince George Cougars, Jason Smith. He was really good. He's a longtime NHLer. He's really cool. He's got a lot of insight, some cool stories from his NHL days. You guys definitely going to want to tune in for that. So we'll start off with that, and then after. We've been watching a lot of hockey. A good amount of games has passed in the NHL. It's a good time to assess the coaching situation. Chris and I are going to talk about who's done well and who hasn't been doing so hot, who's on the hot seat. Without further ado, here's our interview with Jason Smith. Welcome, Jason, to the Rink Masters podcast.
Well, thanks for having me.
Well, thank you for joining.
Yeah, be fun to talk some hockey and see what's going on in the world.
Absolutely. So Jason, to start off, what have you been doing with COVID, right? Because obviously, we're not playing, teams are having a hard time, here in BC, we're having a hard time getting the season going. So have you been keeping busy?
I just basically been doing family stuff, obviously, and catching up and watching as much hockey as I can with the NHL games, and just kind of doing prep work for the start of the season. Hopefully when that day will come. I think it's kind of been obviously long extended break here, but I know our guys are looking forward to the opportunity to get going, and been keeping in touch with them, and they're raring and ready to go. So hopefully that time will come soon.
Right on. And so you mentioned you were watching hockey. Who do you cheer for?
I was just going to ask that too.
To be honest, I don't really cheer for anybody specific. I mean, I think I follow pretty much the Oilers probably the most, and then keep in touch with people from the Flyers and the Senators too. So, I mean, keep an eye on them, and just kind of a fan of the game. I like to watch and see how the game has changed, and keep an eye on what players are doing to improve their individual games, but also the way teams are strategically going about things.
Right on.
Yeah, for sure. So I guess kind of not so much at the present. So let's just hop right in. So obviously when you were playing in the WHL, you were quite the defenseman. And so you won the trophy for best defenseman. I believe it was in 93 or 92. So kind of what was that like?
Oh, getting to play in the Western League and be in Regina, it was a great place for me to start. I think I played a real good group of guys, and coaching staff was good, and I got a chance to develop and grow. And I think that's what junior hockey is about. I think you want to go on and have success, but as a junior hockey player, you want to grow your game, get better, and see where that leads. And I was lucky enough to get lots of ice time, play in a good market where played with some other real good players, and obviously got to move on and play at the pro level. But the junior was a great starting point for it, and I owe a lot of credit to the people that were in Regina when I was there.
Awesome. So you were a member of the World Junior Champs in 1993. What was it like going to a foreign country to play in a tournament like that?
Well, it was the first real major trip I'd gone on, I guess, to play hockey. But, it was great to represent your country. I think getting a chance to play in the World Juniors was, a very special moment in what I would say in my playing career. I think getting a chance to play there, win a gold medal, play with some real good players from around the country, some guys that are my age and some younger guys. It was great to be a part of that, and then to go on and see how a lot of players from that team went on and had some pretty good careers at the pro level.
Yeah, so about that so at that tournament, obviously you got to play with some pretty incredible players. So kind of who would you say from that group was either the best at that time, or who was the most fun to play with?
Well, I think, I look at players that were on that team and the careers they went on and had. I think, Chris Pronger would be one, for an example. It was obviously a very young player at that time, but was a big part of that team. Matty Legacy in goal. He was kind of our, the unknown goalie that went into that tournament and was pretty much the best goalie in that event, and he was a big part of us having success. I think some of the younger guys, the Rob Niedermeyers, Chris Grattens, I think were real good players. Paul Correa was a special guy to be around at that time. He was, elite skill, very dynamic, speed, could skate, could shoot, and had a real high hockey IQ, which was really neat to see. And just a different style of player that was coming up and became a real good player at that time.
Paul Correa, he was a player I loved watching as a kid. It was amazing to see the hands that he had and the way he could read the play. It almost kind of seemed like he could read it like Wayne Gretzky in a way. It just was ahead of his time by that. So you got to win gold at that tournament. What was it like winning gold?
Oh, it was, an outstanding moment. I think, something that my family will remember and I'll remember forever. I think, getting a chance to stand on the blue line and sing the national anthem and receive a gold medal was something that was awesome. I think it was something that you would say is a highlight in your life, and you're in not just sports, but in something that you can remember and be proud of, and hopefully someday I'll be able to tell my grandkids about it.
Yeah. So, kind of along those lines, did it have any extra significance that you got to also then travel to go somewhere else to win it and then bring it home? Like, I don't know, like I've heard so many players talk about how cool it was to like win tournaments on home ice. How was it to like win it somewhere else? Did it have other significance to it?
Yeah, it was really exciting. I think obviously the whole team traveled back to Toronto on an Air Canada plane, and then we all kind of went our separate ways from there. But it was great to get off the plane. I guess when Jeff Shantz and myself got back to Regina, and there was Canadian hockey fans there, kind of saluting us for what we'd accomplished. I think that's one of the benefits, definitely, of when the tournament's out of country. When you do get back and you do get to recognize by people gathering at the airport, or small little events in your towns you were going back to, was very neat to be a part of and be recognized as a Canadian champion, world champion.
Right on. So I'll talk a bit about the NHL Entry Drafts. You got picked pretty high, 18th overall. What was it like going through that experience?
You know what? It's pretty nerve-wracking, I guess. I think at that time in that year in the draft, there was a lot of talk that there was going to be, a lot more European influence coming back into the league. And, you've got your central scouting rankings and all these other companies that do their rankings. And, you kind of see where you might be and where you fall. And you've got your agent telling you information. But I think, all in all, the process was a little different than it is now. I think we didn't have the combine fitness testing. There was certain players were brought in for testing at certain places, and a lot more guys traveled to individual teams at that time rather than having one central location where that was done. So that part of it was a lot different back then. But sitting there in the Montreal Forum on draft day was nervous for the first couple hours, I guess, and then finally got my name called, and it was a big relief. I think I don't know exactly how long it was, but to get to the point where it was the 18th pick seemed like a real long time, and it was just a big relief. I think it was a great day for my family to be a part of, and it was a big relief for me to be able to take a deep breath and just kind of look at a new challenge ahead.
Yeah, so kind of like looking at that challenge ahead, did you feel a lot of pressure going into that? You were drafted pretty high in the draft, so was there that added pressure that you had?
I think you obviously have pressure from yourself and expectations that you have as a player, and you want to succeed and be a great player right away, or be a good player, or be a a guy that can play in the National League. And I was lucky enough to go to a team like New Jersey at that time that had, great depth on the back end, but also had, great coaching staff, and getting the chance to learn from Larry Robinson and, be around Scotty Stevens and Kenny Danico, Bruce Driver, a young Scott Niedermayer, who was, a year older than me, but was already an elite talent at that time. But to be around those guys and see the way they went about, preparing for games, the effort that it took, the way they looked after themselves and trained away from the rink, it was kind of the perfect atmosphere for a young guy that had expectations, but was also in a real good situation to learn and wasn't going to get thrown to the wolves and thrown to the fire right away, which really gave me a chance to grow and get better as a player.
That's awesome. And so early on in your pro career, you had a knee injury that sidelined you for the better part of a season. What was it like kind of climbing up that hill to recover from that?
That was probably the first time I'd ever really incurred an injury where there was a surgery and, missed significant time. It was hard. I spent a lot of days wondering, how long it was going to be and how long it would take. I think at that time there was a big change in how the reconstructive surgery in the knee was done, and some guys were missing a year, or some guys were missing a year and a half, and I was lucky enough to get back playing and played in the American League playoffs, and was a part of a Calder Cup winning team that year, which was great to come back to, and a confident builder, even though it would have been nice to have not missed the year and got an opportunity to play for the Stanley Cup with the Devils. But it was great to be a part of a American League team that had success and kind of build my confidence back up and just basically prepare for the start of the next season.
For sure. And I kind of want to touch it. Sorry, no, I just want to touch on this a little bit, but so obviously, like knee injury, at the time it was a pretty significant injury. I mean, it still is now, but mentally, how much you have to battle, like with the mental side of it, trying to make sure you stay strong through it to get back to your goal to play.
Well, I think anytime you're out and you're used to being a part of a team and practicing and playing every day, and you get injured, it's great to have a great support staff. The training staff with the Devils at that time was outstanding. The strength and conditioning coach basically became my best friend for a long time, because we spent a lot of time together, working out and training and eating, and there was an NHL lockout on at that time too. So right. there wasn't a lot of guys around at the rink unless they were going through the same type of process that I was with dealing with an injury. So, I got a lot of time to really learn how to truly train and really work out and eat properly. I think when you're young and you're in junior hockey and kind of growing up, you just kind of eat what you want and don't really realize how much of a difference putting good things in your body on a regular basis can help you perform and be that much better at what you're trying to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you kind of actually hinted to this. I didn't have it written down at all. But how important is that relationship with team trainers and stuff and the coaching to success as a player?
Well, I think it's the most important part of it is for organizational success as well as individual player success. I think you've got to have training staff and equipment staff that are supportive and caring, but also are aware of what the work is that needs to be done to get things done the right way. You want your management, your scouts, your training staff, your coaching staff, everybody be on the same page. You've got to have reasonable expectations and understand what you have as a group, what you are as a player, and the direction you can go. And if everybody's pushing you the right way and has the same beliefs in what you're trying to accomplish, I think those are the teams that have the best success in that league, and those are the teams that have the players that go on and grow and become better players and become great teammates. And that's all a part of the people at the top of your organization, right down to the foot soldiers at the bottom.
That's awesome. So after, you're in New Jersey for a number of years, you got traded to Toronto, and then to Edmonton, where you served as the longest captain, tied with Wayne Gretzky. Being traded, especially at the national level, what is it like going through that process?
Well, the first time I got traded, was really surprised and didn't really expect it. I mean, I think it's something that pretty much all players, young players now could deal with more and more, because there's so much movement in the National League. I think it was a surprise. I just had a young baby, and was leaving my wife and my daughter in New Jersey, and basically getting on a plane in a day, and kind of leaving them behind and getting started. But that's kind of the nature of the beast. I think there's a little more leeway with players now to when there is a player move, that they don't just jump on a plane and get moving. But it was a tough part of it. I think the automatic reaction is sadness, and do you feel like you failed because you got traded, or and then you kind of take a step back, that what, somebody wanted you, they gave up assets to get you, and it's a fresh start and a new opportunity to go improve yourself. And that's the biggest thing that you can learn and take from when you do get traded, is it's a fresh start, a new opportunity, and now it's about going and putting the work in and doing what you do.
Yeah, so you kind of talked a little bit about how, like, there is that feeling of, well, yes, that team does want you. At the time, if I remember correctly, that was actually a pretty big trade that happened. Did that come with pressure moving to a market like Toronto, that's already like such a crazy market? I think, was it Eric Brewer that talked a bit about that with us? About
And
how
Jason
crazy
Podolin as well.
Yeah. So what was that kind of like, being traded to Toronto?
Oh, I mean, right from the moment I got there, it was definitely a lot different than New Jersey. I think at the average practice with the Devils, or in a game, there'd be maybe 10 media people, 15 media people, and the moment you got to Toronto, there was more people at practice the first day than I think I'd seen in my whole career in New Jersey, between the local TV and the national TV and the TSN and the Sportsnet, and every other radio station in Toronto always had people at Maple Leaf Gardens at that time, and it wasn't the greatest place for the media to speak, because the dressing room was really small and tight compared to what they have at the Air Canada Center now, or I guess it's Scotiabank Place, or what is it now? It's Scotiabank. But
Scotiabank Arena, I believe.
Yeah. But I think you get traded to a market like Toronto. There's media around every day. Obviously, there's pressure of being in a Canadian city. I think the fans are knowledgeable. There's that much more expectation every time you're at the rink. And when I came into the league in New Jersey, I mean, there wasn't always a sold out building, and there wasn't always people at practice, and you didn't have to worry about somebody coming up to you when you're having dinner at a restaurant and talking hockey or wanting autographs. It's a whole different world playing in Toronto, for sure.
Actually, I wanted to kind of go back to New Jersey, right? So you got drafted by New Jersey, ended up in a great situation. Was there a sense that you thought you were going to maybe stay there for your whole career and be a career Devil?
You know what? I think at that time, I mean, I could see a guy like Kenny Danico sitting in the locker room beside me, who, played there as an 18 or 19-year-old, and he was now, 34 years old or whatever he was, and he was still playing, and just the ultimate competitor. And Johnny McLean was in the locker room at the same time, and he was one of the first Devils that were drafted once they were back in New Jersey, and he was there, and both those guys had been there a long time, and everybody else had been, either in the first few years in the league there, or they'd obviously added some real veteran guys. And I think you never really know. I mean, that's sports. I think when you see players like Gretzky get traded, or other players that have had success in all sports, you realize that there's always an opportunity to get moved, unless you're one of those few guys that's the elite of the elite that has that no movement clause. There's always a chance to be traded. And one thing about, if you're traded, there's a good chance that the team you're going to wants you, and there's going to give you an opportunity. So that's one of the exciting things about being traded, is if you're traded for, they want you for a reason, and they think you can help their group. So it's a positive that way.
For sure.
So kind of about your time in Edmonton again. So you got to match Wayne Gretzky's record for longest serving captain there. Like, was that kind of a big achievement for you? Did you put any stock in that at all?
Not really, no. I mean, it's not even comparable to what I mean. Maybe in time, but I think you look at the success and what Wayne did there, and the teams they had, and what he brought to the team. I think every captain brings different things in a different way. I think there's no comparison between players or people when you're representing your group as a captain or a leader. It's what you're doing at that time and what you're bringing to the group. And I mean, it wasn't like I was standing there with a calendar trying to tick off the days to see. I mean, I didn't even really know that until I think somebody might have mentioned that when the reporters called me when I got traded to Philadelphia in the summer. I think somebody told me that I was tied for the longest time, but I never knew that. And it was just a great place to play and represent the Oilers. I think special part in my family's heart, and I'll always remember the days playing there with the group of guys I played with.
Right. So just, we're going to fast forward a little bit. After your final season with the Senators as a player, you eventually ended up becoming a coach. What was that transition like?
Reno, right off the start, I actually took a little bit of time and just spent time with my family, and it was nice to be able to spend some real top quality time at Christmas, and spring break and March break, and do some things in the summer that weren't strictly based around me training, and basically on that kind of time calendar where everything was based on preparing for a season. And then the day that I did step away from playing, Brian Murray said to me if I ever wanted to come back and spend some time around the rink and get involved in whether it was the business side of it, the management side of it, the coaching side of it, or just kind of sit around and watch and talk hockey, kind of left that door open for me, and got to the point where I made the call and said that I was interested in coming back, and I just started sitting up in the press box watching games with him, and then spending time with some of the pro scouts and some time down in Binghamton at that time, which was where the American League team was, and just kind of doing a little bit of everything. Spent some time on the ice down there in Binghamton, spent some time on the ice in Ottawa with some injured players, and just out there with some of the coaches doing some stuff with guys, helping them come back from injury, and just kind of fell into the itch of coaching, and really started to be around the team a lot more. And then that was doing player development, and I spent some time doing road trips, seeing their draft picks and junior guys, and just kind of grew from there. I mean, I didn't really have a specific goal or a plan when it all started, but I ended up getting an opportunity to be a player development coach, and then join the Senator staff itself as an assistant coach, and it was a great starting point. I think it was with very little coaching natural experience, but I still was close enough to the game and had a knowledge of the game, and understood the players. That I thought that Brian thought I had a lot to offer to the group, and I was really happy that he gave me that opportunity. Very, very great man.
Right. And so when you just started like kind of dabbling in coaching, first off, was there any natural like skill sets you didn't realize you had as you were starting to progress in that career?
Well, I think one of the most important things that I learned from coaches that I had along the way was, you got to be able to communicate to the player. It's not always maybe the way you think you want to deliver the message, but it's about trying to deliver the message the right way to the player so he can understand what you're saying. Mm-hmm. I think being able to teach the players and coach them, whether it's by giving examples on the ice, whether it's showing video, whether it's taking guys out on the rink and moving guys around like chess pieces, or moving them in positions and stick positions and showing what you want, I think is something that I was still close enough to the game, being that I could still move around and skate and had a feel for it, and I could do stuff at maybe not the National League pace, but I could still move good enough to be able to show guys what maybe they were doing wrong or what they were doing right, and just little adjustments that they could make to help improve their game. And I think I was able to develop, a real good relationship with the younger players and the older players, and help them along their way.
Yeah. So kind of in your coaching career, so what was it that kind of led you from an assistant coach with the Senators, right? And then you got to be the head coach for the Kelowna Rockets, and now you're the assistant coach of the Cougars. So kind of like what's happened along that journey for you?
Oh, I think the coaching journey is one thing I learned, and I think I've had enough coaches along the way that are really honest people and good people, that coaches are hired to be fired and meant to be rehired. So, there's a lot of situations where coaches are, maybe doing things as good as they can with the talent they have, where it just doesn't get the job done, and somebody wants to make a change, and sometimes maybe the coach just feels he needs to move on. I mean, I think coaches are, always looking to evolve and get better, and that's what I'm trying to do. I want to see where this journey will take me, and I was lucky enough to get fired in Kelowna and get hired by Mark in Prince George, and have a great opportunity up there, work with him, and had a relationship with him before, and I get to spend a lot of time with the team, because he's obviously got the general manager duties to take care as well.
Awesome. And so, being a guy that's played in the Western Hockey League, now you're coaching, what's the difference between then and now that you've seen in the progression of the game?
Well, I mean, I think the elite skill, the elite players in the league right now are probably as skilled as they've ever been. I think with the speed and the skating, and I think the lack of the maybe physical play that happened in the game back when I played, I think it was more of a not a a brawling type league, but the physical play and the transition and the interference in the game and the holding along the boards was what slowed the game down. And now the game has pace, pretty much from start to finish. There's some real elite skilled players that have skills that, they've been working at since they were 3 and 4 and 5 years old on a daily basis. I think the time that the players spend developing now is so much more than what it was back when I played junior, which I think has probably allowed the league to become a faster, better league, and more exciting for the fans in a lot of ways. But I know there's still a lot of fans out there that miss the old time hockey.
For sure.
Yeah. So kind of in Prince George right now, we have a very young, skilled team, it seems, coming up. How excited are you to work with a bunch of these young prospects that we have coming up?
Oh, it's great. It's great. I think, like I said earlier, last year, not really knowing a whole lot about the group, but then seeing some of the young players that were in our lineup last year. I think we had 4 16-year-olds in our lineup last year, and then obviously some affiliate players that were 15-year-olds at certain times. And to see that the pipeline of young players coming that way, plus another group of young guys that's going to be installed and when we start back up, and then the group of veteran guys that we have, and with Gauthier and Brennan in the net, I think you've got stability in your net, which is the most important position in hockey. So we've got stability that way. We've got a good group of young defensemen that are going to grow and get better, and then we've got a lot of young offensive, young forwards that are very skilled and can skate. That should really help the Cougars do great things in the near future.
That's awesome. And I think with that, that's a good way to end off this interview. Thank you, Jason, for your time, and hopefully we can do this again sometime.
For sure, it was great to meet you guys, and thanks much.
Thank you.
All right, so that was our interview with Jason Smith of the Prince George Cougars. It was great to have him on. Great conversation. And yeah, special thank you to Fraser Rogers of the Prince George Cougars for helping set up that interview. That was a huge help. And yeah, I was really impressed by this interview. Jason's such a humble guy, great person to talk to, and it was really cool hearing about his experiences, just growing as a hockey player, and kind of give a hint about what it's like to be captain and to play with some pretty incredible players. And again, huge thank you to Jason. It was great to have him on. And with that, I'll hand it back to Chris and Tyler. Take it away, guys.
All right, now we're going to be talking about NHL coaches, who we've thought has done really well, who we thought hasn't been doing well, and who we think's going to be on the hot seat. So, Chris, I'm handing this off to you. Who do you got?
All right. Well, I got two. I got a good and a bad. I don't know. Should I start with the good or should I start with the bad here?
I think let's start with the good. Let's ease into it.
Okay. Well, we'll start with the good, and we'll start with one of the teams that I think has been absolutely excellent this year so far, and a team I don't think we would have thought would be sitting in this position right now, and it's looking at the Minnesota Wild. They're a team in that West Division where we didn't think they'd be sitting in second spot right on the heels of the Vegas Golden Knights. They're 12-6-0 right now, excellent record, and they've been getting production out of everybody. And I think it's part of it is Dean Evason in Minnesota. He's done a great job coming in with that young group and really finding a play style that really fits them and allows them to gel and really, I think, play loose. I think they're a really loose group that really plays to their skills and really lets their skills, show on the ice. And I think that's really big, is along with having that good defensive structure too, which I think they absolutely excel in as well. Mm-hmm. And with that, they've got excellent numbers out of both their goaltenders as well, which, some people might say Minnesota's goaltending might have been a question mark coming into the season, and both their goalies have had absolutely excellent numbers. So I think the way they've been playing has been phenomenal. I mean, you look at their players, Joel Eriksson-Ek, Jordan Greenway, and Kevin Fiala, Kaprizov, all guys who put up excellent numbers this year. I think just that goes to show how well they've been coached, how well they're able to show off their skills and show off what they got in that system, along with playing that 200-foot game. So I've been really impressed with Minnesota, and I think Dean Evason deserves a lot of the props there in Minnesota with gelling with his players.
Oh, absolutely. And as you're talking about that, playing fast and loose, I mean, obviously, Matt Zuccarello was hurt for the majority of the start of the year, but as soon as he was ready to go, that coaching style was the perfect situation for him to get back into. Zuccarello's been their best player since coming back. And with him, that top six just looks absolutely lethal in Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, their top six has been absolutely great with Matt Zuccarello coming back. And then you look at some of their other guys like Foligno down there on the bottom six, Hartman as well, two guys who have been very good. And when you can get bottom six contributions as well, with having your top 6 firing like they are,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're going to play as well as they've shown so far this season. So I don't think there's a lot that needs to change in Minnesota as of right now.
Yeah, and that's absolutely what they needed to have happen. I think, you know, under Bruce Boudreau, you know, their young guys weren't really progressing at a rate that I think, you know, the organization would have liked. And you know, it was kind of an interesting thing, right? Minnesota was continuing to play mediocre, and you know, here we are. I mean, Greenway has just looked fantastic, like you said, and I've been really impressed. So it'll be interesting to see where this Minnesota team could go this year. You know, I think they could have a legit shot at taking a run in the playoffs.
Yeah, I think touching back on Greenway, I remember him playing on that American junior team, just how big of a body he was, but not even how big he was, is how skilled he was as that big body.
Yeah.
And then seeing him come into the league, he was really, I think, slowed down a lot by the way Minnesota played. And I think the same goes for Eriksson Ek too. I remember him in the World Juniors as well. He's another
fast.
another big kid who can really skate. And I don't think they're being utilized as much as they could have been. And now they're really coming out to show what they can produce on the ice.
Absolutely.
So we'll hand it off to you, Tyler. What do you got for your first coach?
First coach. Well, you know what? I've been really impressed with what Todd McLellan has been doing with the Los Angeles Kings. You know, I think, you know, they were a team last year that they didn't do good. They did not have a good year. So, you know, naturally, I think a lot of us just kind of expected them to be bad this year. That's just not been the case. They've been playing really well. I think that the additions of like Jared Anderson-Dolan and Gabe Vilardi to the lineup have absolutely just given them that youth that they needed to add speed. And it seems like their veterans have been resurrected and they've been playing really good. I'd like to see how they finish the year.
Yeah, I think LA's been definitely playing well, better than what we expected them to. As you touched on last season, they were not good. They were just about every team's whipping boy when they came in to play the Kings. It was going to be an easy dub, and now for those teams in the West, it's really not looking like that. And I've been impressed, like you said, the veterans, guys like Dustin Brown, have been really good. A guy you wouldn't expect to, or you expect, kind of head down on that downslide, and he's been really good. After the Sea is another guy picked up in the offseason who I've been impressed with as well on LA. So I think that's some encouraging signs, and especially with their young guns as well.
Yeah, and on top of that, Jeff Carter was a guy that I did not expect to be playing as well as he has been. He's kind of been on that steady decline for the last handful of years, but he's another guy that's just found new life, and I think it's cool to see. I mean, as much as I haven't been a fan of the Kings, it's nice to see that experience with the right injection of youth is picking it up, and they're able to be a competitive team.
Yeah, no, because we remember what that Kings team did, back when they won those cups. We see what they had. They had that youth, they had that veteran experience, and now some of those veterans who are on this team are really injecting that into the youth. So I think they got a really good combo going on there in Los Angeles for sure.
Yeah, for sure. And Chris, what's another coach that's standing out to you that's been doing a really good job with the team that he's got?
Yeah, I guess we can touch in on the Toronto Maple Leafs. I know, Tyler, that's a team that we've really been impressed with, obviously watching that North Division. And I think it's been dealing with adversity. Toronto has dealt with a lot this season. As a team, we might be like, no, they're the Leafs. But, Austin Matthews, we just got word, he's been dealing with a wrist injury all season long. And look at the numbers he's been putting up.
Mm-hmm.
That's been absolutely incredible. And Coach Sheldon Keefe's done with a lot of injuries in his lineup. I mean, they could have been very easily to say, we're banged up, we're hurt. And, Toronto's been a fragile team. Not the case this year. Sheldon Keefe has still got them to play the way he wants them to with the injuries out, because we've seen how good a guy like Wayne Simmons had been playing, all season with Toronto. You lose him and you're like, what do we do? But no, Sheldon Keefe's got him playing well with those young guys in there and guys who may not be on the roster all the time. So I've been really impressed with what Sheldon Keefe's done in Toronto.
Yeah, I totally agree. And they're in that position right now where it's like, even when they got guys like Wayne Simmons and Joe Thornton out of the lineup, like obviously those guys in the lineup, they're a good team and a team you don't want to mess with. But there's proving that even with those guys being a non-factor out on the IR, they're still a legit team and that they're gonna give you a run every night. And so in my mind, like going into the playoffs, if they have a healthy Thornton and a healthy Simmons, that's great. But they don't absolutely need that to be the case.
Yeah, no, that's key. Like you look what they're doing now without those players in the lineup. Look what they can do with those guys in the lineup. They've only had one clunker game really in the last, couple weeks, and that was that 3-0 loss to Calgary.
Yeah.
And that was, David Riddick kind of just stole that game for the Flames, even though the Leafs really didn't play well, but it was excellent. Same with that next game too against Calgary. But other than those two games, really, they've been a team to been reckoned with, and with a healthy lineup, they could really be a force because it looks like it's showing they're not going to be a fragile team this year, and that'll be key going into the playoffs.
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see what Toronto can do. I've been rooting for them for the last couple of years. I like the young court that they've got there, and I think Keefe is going to really take them to maybe to a good playoff outcome.
Yeah, no, 100% agree. We've touched on three good teams so far and what their coaching staff has done. I mean, let's look at the other side of things, and what have you not been impressed with so far this year with a couple coaches?
Well, I mean, as a guy that I've talked about for a couple of weeks now, but I'm going to say it again. John Hines in Nashville. Nashville, to me, there's maybe two things to be at blame. You can maybe look at the general manager, maybe he didn't assemble the right team. But at the end of the day, John Hines does not have his team playing good at all. For the most part, the Nashville Predators look completely unmotivated to me. The guys that are earning the big bucks seem to just be dragging it along each shift. They don't seem to be playing like they want to play. And ultimately, you can't have that. I think Hines has to really find a way to get this team into shape. Otherwise, this is going to be a really devastating year for Nashville fans. They're not on a good trajectory right now.
No, Nashville's looking really bad. I think a lot of it falls on the general manager not picking a necessary side to go on to with what their core pieces have done, because they're in a bad spot. Like you said, we don't know if they're trying to win. We don't know if they're trying to rebuild, like what they should do. But at the same time, you look at Hines, he doesn't have his team playing. He doesn't have those top guys playing. You got to find something in your team to get them going, because he has the weapons there. There are a lot of proven guys in Nashville who we know can, put the puck in the back of the net. It can be a real force on the ice, offensively and defensively. And it's only a couple years ago that they were in the Cup Finals, and now look where they are.
Well, and
they're in a really bad spot.
Yeah, and a lot of those players are still there. The core guys are still there, right? Like, and again, like they moved out PK Subban in that contract to New Jersey just for the purpose of bringing in Matt Duchene in the free agency. They're paying him pretty good money to drag his butt on the third line. That to me is atrocious. And if you're Hines, you got to get through to a guy like Duchene. And a lot of people like to crap on John Tortorella for being a bit of a hard ass. Well, look at how well Duchene played in the playoffs when he was in Columbus for that short stint. He got Duchene whipped into shape, and he was playing good hockey. We need to see that in Nashville. Otherwise, this is not going to be good.
No, then that's exactly it. He needed a coach to get on his ass to start playing good hockey, because we know what Matt Duchene can do. He's seen
a good player.
We've seen it all throughout his his junior up until the NHL. We can see what he's done. But the fact that he just can't figure it out and they're paying him that kind of money, it's not good, because you look at the center depth, Nashville has, it's pretty good for what they're paying their guys. You got Johansson and Duchene down the middle. If you would have told me, that's who Nashville's got down the middle, I'd say, hey, they're probably in a good spot with, the right pieces in play. And, they do have some of those right pieces in there. It's just no one's doing anything.
No. Yeah. And it really does feel like even just on the on-ice presence, they don't want to play for each other. That's another thing that I've been picking up on. I might be wrong, but they don't look passionate at all with and without the puck.
Yeah, no, it's been a struggle for them all year because we look, even Roman Josi, Norris season last year.
Not quite this
Yes,
year.
he hasn't. No, not quite this year at all. So we'll have to see what Nashville does. I think there's big things to happen for them in a bad way. I think they should rebuild 100%.
Yeah. And to me, like when I look at that team, I think the only guy that I think has looked extremely motivated has been Dante Fabro, one of the youngest kids on the team, and he is playing with heart. That's a problem. If your shining star is Dante Fabro, not a knock on him because he's a really good defenseman, but he's also your youngest player.
Yeah. And that can't be the case for your youngest player, who obviously you expect that out of the young kids to really come out and want to prove themselves. We know what Dante Fabro can do as a player, but the fact that he's your guy that's trying to lead the horse,
that's a problem.
That's a big time problem, and it shows with what they've been doing this season. So that's a mess of a situation, and I'm glad I am not a part of that. We'll just say that.
Yeah, no, me too. I'm really glad I'm not a Nashville Predators fan right now. And yeah, on that note, Chris, who has not been performing in your eyes up to par? Who do you not like?
Well, if you know me personally, it's going to be the head coach of that team right back there, Jeff Ward. I think there's been so much shit going on with this Calgary team. You look at first off, their core is extremely good. We have an extremely good core. We have a really good defense, a solid offense that can really put the puck in the net, that could be dynamic. We now have Jacob Markstrom in net. We have all the pieces in play, and yet we're a 500 team. That just doesn't happen
work
to a core like this.
No.
that we've seen do so well. And every night it's fire Ward, even after wins. It's because we're relying on our goaltender, and you can't do that in the NHL and expect to win longevity. And I look at the system he plays, and it doesn't fit our team at all. No. You got guys like Gaudreau and Monahan, and he's got them playing dump and chase hockey.
You can't.
Those aren't the guys who are going to be playing dump and chase hockey. It just doesn't work. You got to let them. A perfect example is what I touched on earlier with Minnesota. He's got to let these guys play freely and show off their skill, because they did that under Bill Peters the year that they, won the West. That's what they were doing. They were being themselves and playing a skilled hockey game, and now it's just not there. I think another thing is he's picking favorites. And what I mean by that is, we know Jeff Ward was the assistant coach at Boston in 2011 when Boston won the Cup. And we look who was on that team, who was on this Calgary team. Yeah, it's big number 17, Milan Lucic. He gets so much goddamn ice time for absolutely no reason. Like don't get me wrong, he's good in his situation, but it's
No, he's really good at one thing: stumbling into the boards by missing a check. He's really good at that.
Yeah, it's so bad. And then I look at the game against Edmonton. We lost that one 2-1 at home. He benched Sam Bennett.
And he was you guys' best player at that point too. He was literally the best player on the Calgary Flames. And it's like, yeah, no, you're going to sit on the bench. We're going to put Milan out there.
Mm-hmm.
Watch how it's done. Sam, watch how it's done. Go watch Milan.
Yeah. Yeah, he puts out Milan and Byron Fraze out there with 2 minutes left in the game. It's like, dude, what are you doing? Bennett had 4 shots on that game, one of the best players. And then when asked about it after the game, he's like, we're going to keep that internally. Like, what? So you can't even own up to your own mistakes when the reporters ask. Right. And it's just, I think one more thing I'll touch on is, saying different things. It comes back in the bubble last season when we lost that game to Dallas in Game 6, where we had the 3-0 lead, and it all went to shit. And I look at Jeff Ward. I look at the media conference afterwards. He ended up putting David Riddick in after I think it was the 4th or 5th goal. Dallas
think it was
scored in
the
that
fourth.
second period, fourth goal, yeah. So he pulled Talbot, put David Riddick in, didn't go well. Riddick had absolutely no time in the net at all.
Oh, he was cold.
Besides,
He was
yeah,
very cold.
very cold. And after the game, Jeff Ward was asked about it, and he said he just pulled Talbot to play. No, what did he say? It was okay. Yeah, no, it was about an equipment issue. He said he had an equipment. Cam Talbot had an equipment issue. That's why he came out of the game. But then Cam Talbot after the game said that he got pulled because of just going there to clear his head and get back into the game, is what he was told. So who are you going to believe there? Are you going to believe your head coach who says, oh, he's got an equipment issue, which is like the biggest excuse in the book? Or are you going to believe the goalie who just, tried his ass off in that game and then got pulled?
I would believe the goalie. And I think it'd be safe to say that was, I think, what severed the tie from between Talbot and the organization.
Yeah, no, he's 100%. That's 100% the reason why he didn't come back.
Yeah. Honestly, that's a tough situation with Calgary, because I look at that team. We did our Calgary Flames breakdown, you and I, and we projected this team could potentially have been one of the best teams in the NHL. They had all the pieces. They have a Vezina candidate goalie. They have they have a really solid defense in place. They have the top six figured out. Well, they did at the start of the year anyway. And they had quality depth acquisitions. Like, there's no reason, absolutely no reason why the Flames couldn't be one of the biggest threats in the league this year.
Yeah, and it's gone down the shitter. And one other thing I look at the line juggling. It's one period doesn't go well. Oh, let's throw the lines in a blender.
No, you got to have it. You got to have consistency there.
You got to be consistent. You got to let guys figure it out. And when you do that, they don't get chemistry, and that's not going to work when we're just dumping the puck in every time and giving it to the other team. Well, we don't have any rush chances.
Well, exactly, and we know how short each shift in the NHL is. Like, they're not out there for a huge amount of time, so when things aren't going well, it sometimes will take a handful of shifts before they really get into that groove, right? Like, you can't expect them to completely figure it out and then say, okay, that's it, you're done. We're gonna do it again. I know I've seen that happen. In person at Cougar games. Sometimes when thing's not going well, they juggle up the lines going to blender. Nothing changes. The only thing that you see is just it gets a little bit more sloppy, and the team's not playing.
No, so some guys just have an off night or just really need to find it, and it just takes that one thing in that game. But it's gonna be harder to find that one thing that sparks it when you're playing with guys you normally don't play with and your chemistry's off. It just isn't going to work.
Yeah, and when you're looking at from longevity standpoint, consistency, I think, is really crucial. Like, look at the Dallas Stars in the playoffs last year. Even when there was games that they weren't playing the best of their abilities, they kept the lines relatively the same, and they bounced back the next game. The players know how to play with each other. They know the system. They have everything down pat. You're good to go, right? But if you keep switching that up, and you're going to get to a point where there's going to be no chemistry at all and nobody's gelling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Then you just, at that point, you just stop playing for the coach.
Yeah.
And you just hope the heck he gets canned. We've had so many downs this year. We lost that game 7-1 to Edmonton. Then we go ahead and we take 3 or 4 points from the Leafs. Yeah. And then we go into Ottawa and get our asses kicked. It's like, what was it, 6-1?
Something like that. It was bad.
Yeah. We just get our asses kicked, and it's just like, oh man, that kind of inconsistency it can't happen.
No, it definitely can't. Oh man, and in terms of coaches completely underperforming, I was gonna say Dallas Eakins for the Anaheim Ducks, because at this point, Anaheim doesn't have a terrible team. Right, you look at there's maybe a little bit of lack of depth on offense, but they have some really good young players in that lineup. They have a top 10 goalie in the league. Their defense should be playing better than it has. And I don't believe they've had any huge injuries on the back end either for the first time in forever. That's a team that can't really seem to put it together. What are your thoughts on Anaheim this year?
Yeah, they've been little bit of a disaster. It was Anaheim who blew those two straight game 3-0 leads, correct?
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so.
that's when you have a goalie like John Gibson in net, that shouldn't be happening. And I'm not going to put the blame on John Gibson.
No, me neither.
That's having. I've seen this plenty of times with so many teams. They get leads, and then they start playing, complacent hockey. And I think that falls directly on your coach. He doesn't keep going on the bench, keep going on hard shift after another hard shift. Get out there. We need a hard shift out of you. And when your coach isn't doing that, even up 3-0, you need that consistency. And if you're not getting that, teams are going to walk all over you. And that's what Arizona did in those two games.
Yeah, and Arizona is one of the hardest working teams in the league. Rick Tocchet runs a pretty tight ship. And so, yeah, if you give a team like Arizona even an ounce of room to breathe, they're going to stomp on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, though they have the weapons to do so. And when you're when John Gibson's letting in 3-4 goals when you're up 3-0, that clearly means you're not, first off, defending your net properly, and second of all, you're probably hemmed in your own end the whole time too, not continuing to try to add on to that lead. You can't go into defend mode when you're up in a game. It doesn't work in this NHL. It's not the same as it used to be.
Right. You know what? And there's a reason why. I mean, a coach like Dallas Eakins has a hard time having a full-time NHL job as a head coach. Edmonton tried it for a bit. It didn't work. I don't think he's a good coach. And I think if you're Anaheim, I mean, you've got some really good young players coming up the pipeline. You have some solid roster players right now. A top 10 goalie. Like, I mean, if LA can frickin' pull it off and have a pretty solid season, I think you should be able to as well. Like that, to me, there's really very little room for excuses in Anaheim, especially when their neighbor LA is quite literally showing them up.
Mm-hmm. And you look at both of those teams. What is the real big difference? They're not really that much different on and off paper.
No.
The only thing is goaltending, which Anaheim has over LA. Other than that, I mean, come on, your team should be playing up to that standard, if not better. And like you said, LA just showing up, and I think that you would really think that'd be a kick in the ass for Anaheim. Hey, we got to get going.
Well, you would think so. You would think so.
Not.
No. It's really interesting, right? Because I mean, I was really hard heading into this year on my predictions, really hard on the California teams. I mean, San Jose has been just as bad as I thought they would be, right? San Jose has been brutal, but LA surprised me, and I'm really disappointed in Anaheim. Especially there's a lot of WHL alumni on that team. Josh Mahura, Sam Steele. Those are two guys that I would love to see flourish. And of course, I mean, Trevor Zegras, who lit it up the World Juniors, is now finally getting his cup of tea in the NHL. So we'll see if that helps. But it's just, I'd like to see this team succeed going forward.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, it's tough for me to say that. But at the same time, just seeing, those players on that team, you would obviously like to see it. And I think one thing that you can't fall into to kind of end off this thought on the Ducks is their head coach will be like, oh, we got Trevor Zegras on this team. Everything's fine. No, that's not how it works. You can't just say, oh, he's here. He's the savior. We're going to be okay.
No.
You still got to up your game. You still got to be hard on players. You can't be blowing 3-0 leads. That can't happen. And one player like that isn't going to save your team. So you still got to be hard on the ice regardless.
Absolutely. So Chris, is there another coach that you want to throw onto the bus right now, or?
I mean, we've touched on the Rangers a lot. Yeah. So I'm not going to really go there again. We kind of know what their problems are. I don't know. I'm thinking everything's been all right. I mean, we wanted to talk about Boston just a little bit. Bruce Cassidy has been better. We thought, Boston might fall off with some of those injuries and stuff. Start the season, they've been
good.
They've been solid. I haven't had anything bad to say. I know they did get, beaten pretty bad, a couple games here this weekend. But, I believe they came back and won today, 4-1 against the Rangers. So,
yeah.
all those things are going to happen to teams, even the good teams. But yeah, the injuries up front for Boston and for Bruce Cassidy to get his team together. It's kind of the same thing with the Leafs too, not letting off and not letting those things affect your team. I think that's one feature in a coach that I think can be overlooked, is getting your team to continue playing really strong hockey with, top guys out of the lineup.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, on the note of injuries, we got to talk about Jeremy Colleton and the Chicago Blackhawks.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, the one organization that's been facing, I think, the most adversity before the season even started. No Kirby Dach. They find out got no Jonathan Toews. What are we going to do? And on top of that, Crawford walks, and their goaltending probably was the biggest question mark heading into the season. Well, I will say they got a little bit lucky with the emergence of Lankinen. I think he's been really good. But the team overall has played extremely well, and they've been consistent, which has been key to their success when really nobody thought they would be.
I think everyone kind of, had that team written off. You look at, losing 2 centers. I mean, Jonathan Toews is your top line center. I'm not sure where Kirby Dach fits in, if he's second or third line at this stage with the Hawks, but either way, that's 2 big centers. And losing 2 big centers, that can be really detrimental to a team. Yeah. And you've seen, Patrick Kane he's flourished. We kind of thought, oh, who's Patrick Kane going to play with? Is he still going to do well? Damn well he is. He's showing why he still is a very elite player in this league.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, he's got his team playing each and every night. And that's what you need in the NHL, is to get those, once again, players that aren't going to be in the lineup. Pia Suter, hey, look at what he's done so far. You wouldn't have expected at the start of this season for him to have the type of rookie season he has. And it's just getting the most out of your players, regardless of who they are and regardless of where they are in the lineup.
Yeah, well, and the guy that I was really wanting to look at was Matthias Denmark. Of course, he had a really bad knee injury in Dallas, and he was never the same player since. And he was not a terrible player last year, but he wasn't good, right? He was kind of just your middle 6 forward. He's found his groove again in Chicago, and he has been one of the more consistent point getters. And I think that's also been key because, with the guys they lost, I think the question was, are they going to have secondary scoring, or are they going to be top heavy? Well, they've been getting secondary scoring, and it's been fun to watch, actually, to see this Chicago team really kind of, show everybody that you guys were wrong to doubt us this year.
Yeah, they're a team where you can't walk into that building and be like, all right, we got an easy win tonight. Chicago's going to come out hard. They're going to get, 4 lines rolling at you, and you got to be prepared for that. Because, coaching staff has got them ready to play.
Absolutely. All right. And I think with that concludes our episode for today. Thank you everyone for tuning in. We'd like to know in the comments who you've liked this year, which coaches that you think are doing really well and which coaches need to go. And we hope to see you next week. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. And bye for now.